Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here with part 2 of an 8-part series.
It's a lengthy one. 7 or 8?
7 or 8.
I can't remember. That out. Yeah. We should look at a calendar before we start these videos.
It would be helpful.
Anyway.
Moving on.
Catch-22.
Catch-22.
Part 2. Was this chapters 8 through 14? 7 through 14?
7 through 14, yeah. Or no, 8 through 14.
This
7
is...
7 through 14?
This would have been 8 through 14.
8 through 14.
1 through 7 was last week.
Yeah.
This is a something, man. I haven't quite put my finger on this.
You know, I'll start here. I'll be God damned. I'll be goddamned.
Go on.
We talk a lot about Hemingway. And Hemingway is famous for the iceberg principle.
Okay.
Can you talk a little bit about the iceberg principle? What that is?
Essentially, basically, you're just getting the tip of the iceberg, but there's so much more going on beneath.
Things that are communicated without being told. Essentially, the iceberg theory is you don't tell any story, and it tells the whole story.
Okay.
I've also read a lot of amateur writing. Edited a whole bunch of stories in my life.
Fair.
Edited stories for 10 years now. What a lot of amateurs do, what a lot of beginning writers do, is the opposite. They fall in love with doing the opposite. They tell every story in hopes that they let you know what story is going on.
Okay.
But this is telling every goddamn story in order to not tell you any goddamn story at all.
So, Catch-22. It's a big one. This is considered a classic of literature. This is one that's been on our list of should have read by now. It really is, truly is. I will wholeheartedly say, if it was not, if it did not have itself up on that pedestal, I would stop reading it.
Yeah, the main part from this has got to be a 200,000 word novel.
It's a big one.
This has got to be 200,000 words, somewhere in there, right? We are a quarter of the way through-ish, maybe a little more. What has happened?
Nothing.
Oh, did you even do the rundown yet?
Nope.
Do the rundown. I didn't mean to jump in there.
Well, no, it was good. It was good to preface with that. So, chapters 8 through 14, from what I have gathered, is basically the same thing you got last week. We continue to get snippets of different men's lives.
You know what this is going to be? We continue to take slings and arrows for our read-along of the road. People continue to pop up in the comment sections of those videos and call us fat asses, call us dumbasses. They love commenting on your hair for some reason.
Sure, I don't know why.
They love to guess about our ethnicity, take jabs at our sexuality. This is going to be another one of those.
Probably.
Because we're supposed to love this novel.
We are.
This is not going to be a love letter series.
To be fair, and again, wholeheartedly, if this was not Catch-22, if this is not something that I feel that I should have read or I should know, I would not finish it.
Right.
Which is not good. That is not good for the author.
Well, here's the thing.
We're going to get through this wrap-up eventually here.
If this is a 200,000 word story, we're 50,000 words in.
And nothing's happening.
You can write an American great in 50,000 words. Slaughterhouse-Five, which many would contend is not a great, is I believe 36,000 words. The Old Man and the Sea, I think, is somewhere in the mid-30s.
Great Gatsby's
Great Gatsby's like 40.
There's some stuff that could be done.
You could do something in 50,000 words.
And there's some good stuff going on here. This is great character.
You're going to have to tell me about
There's some great characters being built.
Name 5 characters.
That's the problem, I can't.
Give me an estimate of how many characters there are.
1 billion. Because that's the problem. Every single chapter is a perspective of some character. A little bit about this person. It is a character perspective. And there's just too much of it for no reason. Now, if Joseph Heller, and I'm assuming he does, that's what makes this the classic bestseller, Catch-22, he is going to tie this together and he's going to do something with it. Albeit, make it happen. I'm ready for it. But as of right now, I've got 14 chapters. My book, 144 pages, where I can't tell you the plot. I'm getting an introspective look at war. I'm looking at war through the eyes of the men who are fighting the war. It's a little silly. They're taking jabs here and there. I'm learning a lot about these quirky characters. But that's it. And there's so much happening, I can't keep track of these characters. I can't tell you why this person's quirky, why this person isn't. Because they're just being given to you. They're not doing anything.
And when
throwing my glasses around.
When one of them pops back up in the narrative,
you have to think, why is this person here?
Well, you don't remember what type of quirky they are.
Exactly.
Because they're all different types of quirky, but they all have the exact same dialogue.
So, we are continuing to get the different men's lives, as well as now, apparently...
that's the part that really bugs me, is the dialogue here. Because the dialogue is all circular.
Okay.
It's all the same argument whenever two characters are talking, and they all have the same voice. No one ever says anything that another character in this story would not or could not say.
Okay.
Now, there's a little bit of difference when you're talking about Yossarian trying to get out of doing what they're doing, and was it Major Major? It wasn't Major Major. It was Major Colonel or Major Corn? Colonel Corn?
Major Corn? Or is it Major DeCoverly?
Is Major DeCoverly.
Okay.
Was saying, shut up and get back. Shut up and do what you're told.
Okay.
Right? So there's just two perspectives. But there's...
I'm going to get back into Major DeCovery because that irks me. Anyway, what happened? We're getting these different men's lives. We are starting to get, and we discussed this a little bit, there's flashbacks
That's
from
the hell
characters'
of it,
lives.
is we're getting their lives. You're telling every story in order to tell no story.
Yes.
That's the thing. That's what I was
We get
talking
an
about.
entire chapter of Major Major's backstory.
We get the entire chapter of Major Major's name's backstory. We get an entire chapter of Major Major's father's life.
However, there seems to be a big event here, because I'm saying a big event because it's transposed to different chapters now. That's the mission in Bologna.
The only thing we've ever seen cut across a chapter.
The only thing, which is this proposed mission in Bologna, which creates a wave of forced patriotism with the Glot, where they're saying, we're going to do this, blah, blah, blah. Yossarian basically just fudges the map, the paperwork, and they say, hey, we don't have to go to Bologna. And Yossarian kind of has a moment where he realizes he turns back from the mission, and he's then on a beach, something like that, where he gets this vision of maybe things aren't as bad as I'm believing them to be. So Yossarian's going to die.
I thought what that was things got so bad that what we were doing was we were taking this respite.
No. I would disagree.
Okay.
This very much is Yossarian goes in and says, he basically changes the map, which this is basically a satirization of the military. Since the map's changed, everything's fine. It wasn't that bad in Bologna. And we're planning this weird vacation, a respite for the men. And then Yossarian is turning back on the mission from Bologna. He talks to, what's the kid's name? Kid something. Basically saying that there's
I thought it was something kid.
Something kid.
No, you're right. It is kid something.
Okay.
No, it was definitely something kid.
Where he's turning his back on the mission in Bologna, and at the end he sees all the planes coming ahead, and everything's fine. So Bologna wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be. So I assume we're going to get Yossarian is going to be doubting himself now, and he's going to put himself into an extremely dangerous situation where he's either going to get men killed or he's going to get killed.
Kid Samson.
Kid Samson.
Kid Samson, Kid something. It was close.
But it's Kid something because you don't know that character. You don't know a goddamn thing about that character.
Right.
Because there's just way too much. It's information overload at this point. But, if I may, let me try to put a spin on this. I talked a little bit last week how this is an endearing book. This is something that we hold near and dear because it's a rare glimpse of the men who are fighting the war. We're not focusing on the war. We're focusing on the men.
Where did that happen?
Did we not talk about that last week?
We talked about this being a... Where did we talk about holding it near and dear?
No, that's my argument this week as to why it's going to be near and dear. Why this is considered a classic. And again, there could be an awesome turn here. There could be a great turn that makes this better. But as of right now, this is what I've got. We talked about this seems to be the war guys. They're sitting around, they're swapping stories. And that is... It's endearing. It's something you enjoy. It's the water cooler conversation. It's not making for great literature at this point in time. That's what we have. This was 1962. That was our publication date, right?
I believe so.
The United States entered the Vietnam War in 1965. Very, very different attitude towards military than we have today. Honestly, than we've ever had. The Vietnam War was not considered a good thing.
Published in 61.
61?
Won the 62 Book of the Year.
People were up in arms against the war in Vietnam. What we have here is instead of a classic tale of war with heroes.
A Farewell to Arms.
A Farewell to Arms, where we're focused on the war and we're focused on that these men are heroes. We're not focusing on the war. We are focusing on the fallacy of war. We are straight up satirizing the military. But we're showing the men who are fighting this war for us. And we are making them characters, and we are making them heroes in our mind, because they're just people like us. People like us who are making these sacrifices. I had a professor in college. He was a Vietnam War veteran. We were out to dinner one day. We were at a conference. Saw a man in uniform, invited him to eat with us. They talked, they swapped war stories, and he made a great point to thank the man for his service. Because, according to the professor, when he returned from fighting in the Vietnam War, there was no thank you for service. You're a baby killer.
Right.
This seems to be that attitude towards war. It is trying to capture that. It is trying to show you the satirization. The military's, ridiculous. The fallacy of war is there. But these people who are fighting this war are just good people, for the most part.
Well, there's a chasm between when he returned from Vietnam, he was a baby killer, and these are good people at war, isn't there?
Okay.
There's a massive chasm between those two stances. What this is a changing of the tides.
It is a changing of the tides because it is not the stereotypical war novel that you've ever had. This is a very different feel.
These are still good guys in bad situations.
Yes. It feels, and that's the only way I can put a spin on this to say this is why maybe this was a hit, is this is a different war novel. This is a focus on character. This is a light-hearted look at a very serious subject, and very, very different from the rigid war novel that you normally get. That's the best thing I can fathom with this, because at this point, I don't know where we're going. If I get 7 more chapters telling me about characters that I'm never going to see again, or who are going to pop up for a quirky line and leave, I don't understand the point of continuing forward with this. There has to be a reason that this is going to flip. Something is going to happen here. I assume there is going to be an actual battle, and these men are going to come forward, and we are going to see the glory of war, where these men step up and defend what they believe in.
Or they accident their way into it.
I believe we're going to see a flip in Yossarian. I would assume he is either going to die or get men killed. Because he's always been the one who just kind of gets by. He can always sneak by on something.
I think he's going to be the one that accidents his way into becoming a war hero.
Okay.
I don't know what evidence you have to this point in the novel to suggest that the great flip in Yossarian will be an understanding or a realization versus a delve deeper into the ridiculous.
It could go either way, honestly.
I don't think it could.
You don't?
I do not think that it could. Okay. Look, I mean, it's possible, obviously. This is an imaginary world. This is a book that's been written. I don't see any evidence to suggest that is what's going to take place. All the evidence on the table is to suggest that what's going to take place is they're going to get into a battle. They're going to accident themselves into doing something incredibly heroic or something incredibly pivotal to the war effort, and Yossarian will be the person who accidents his way into a great war hero.
What's a better novel, though?
What do you mean?
Those two situations, what's a better novel?
The former, not the latter, not the situation that I gave.
And that's why, if this is a classic of literature, I'm expecting something a little bit better.
When you use the term, what's a better novel, what are you going with? Your previous experience as a reader or your previous experience with this novel? I am damn positive at this point in the reading that the reason this novel has been remembered and is hailed today is for the idea of the Catch-22 itself. It is the kernel inside the novel that is worth remembering.
Okay. And maybe that's the case. If so, wow, I'm disappointed. But I am still clinging to this hope that Joseph Heller's going to turn this one around. He's going to make something special out of this. But I'm starting to get a little concerned this far into the novel that it hasn't happened just yet. My assumption, whatever's going on in Bologna is going to be our crux. That is our change. There is something going on because that has, again, been throughout multiple chapters. The first thing that's been throughout multiple chapters. That seems to be our big plot point moving forward. What's going on in Bologna? And I assume something like this is going to repeat again, but Yossarian won't be as lucky this time.
Right.
Anyway, Major de Coverley. Do you get anything from that at all? Why is that struck? Again, I am trying to give Joseph credit. I'm trying to give Joseph Heller credit that he has not earned yet.
I'm trying to give Joseph credit Heller.
Yes.
We're going to give Joseph credit a little bit of Heller here.
I'm trying to give Heller credit that he has not earned for me yet. But honestly, this whole striking out of Major de Coverley either pushes towards that, it doesn't matter who you are, it's all rank. Or we're just playing on the idea that this is the weird, mysterious man.
It is just inane.
Makes
You've
no
already
sense
got
to me.
General Scheitzkopf. Do you know what Scheitzkopf means?
What is that?
Scheitz means shit.
Okay.
Kopf means head. He's General Shithead, who then was called General Shithead by his men, which normally with that gag you don't ever acknowledge it, you just let it play. You've got Colonel Corn instead of Corn Colonel.
You got Major.
You've got Major. His first, middle, and last name are Major, and he's a major.
Which is clever. I like it.
If it were the only nameplay in this novel, I'd allow it. And the one person who gets called out for their name is Yossarian.
Okay.
Because what kind of name is Yossarian?
Fair.
I think there was another one in here that was stupid.
Don't understand it. Don't like it. I don't get what we're pushing at here. And that seems to be the problem with discussing this. This is our Let's Read series. I feel for the most part we usually do a good job of talking about what we read. We do a good job of analyzing the text, criticizing the text, and talking about what's coming forward. There's nothing to work with here.
Well, the point is that there's nothing to work with, right?
And maybe that is the point.
The point is the pointlessness of war. But, A, you can only run that gag so many times. B, you can't run that gag for 200,000 words.
I was about ready to say, I get it. Okay, if we're talking about the pointlessness of war, cool, fine and dandy. Write a novel about it. This is 453 pages. And so far, we've just repeated the same gag over and over and pushed that topic of this is just silly and doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's just bricks of text, right? There are
some chapters that are relentless.
There are some chapters, 7 pages, 3 paragraphs. Like it's not. If you want to get on certain writers for being staccato, get on Joseph Heller for being just not.
Okay. He's not
just.
He doesn't even have the staccato.
Not.
One thing, there was a scene, and I'm trying to crunch my brain for names. Milo, you are a fine mess hall officer. I'm not a mess hall officer. Milo, you are a fine mess hall officer. So now Milo is a mess hall officer. That is this book in a nutshell.
That's all of the dialogue in this book, period.
And I don't know what to work with on that. I think, again, if you are looking at this from a character study, okay, we've got some interesting characters here, but there is no dynamic whatsoever between them. There's no decent dialogue. There's no decent interaction.
There was in chapter 1, and that's the hell of it.
Okay, decent start, sitting around the hospital room.
Yeah.
But it never goes anywhere from here. And honestly, I made this argument for you, and you disagreed with me, but it just feels like an episode of MASH. It does.
I've seen collectively probably 2 episodes of MASH
Okay.
composed of 5-minute bits that I digested as a 7th grader because it came on after Friends reruns. I could probably name more characters from MASH than I can from this novel.
Okay. I like MASH. I'm fine with that. I think this series is going to be, or is, a Hulu series. I think it's going to be successful because it's what it feels like. Here's an episode where we're going to tell you about somebody. Cool. That's great. What series did that for a long time? There was one television series that was just phenomenal at that.
Don't ask me.
Every episode was basically a study into the character.
Was it Lost?
No. Netflix. Orange is the New Black. That's how that show works. Every episode is they delve deeper into a character. They had a full season where that's what they did. That's what this is. But when you have to sit down and read it, and you're trying to digest it, and you're trying to figure out what's going on here, it's not good, man. This has not been a pleasant read so far.
It feels bad, man.
It just feels bad.
Do you know what it feels like?
What's it feel like?
So oftentimes you get something like, you get comparisons with steroids, right? When you say Adrian Peterson is Dickerson on steroids.
Okay.
It means he runs like Dickerson did, but on steroids. Or you say Twilight is Jane Austen on crack, right?
Okay.
Weird stuff thrown in, maybe it's a little off base. This feels like Vonnegut on weed instead of Pall Malls, right? Because it's not jittery like Vonnegut's writing, but it's got the same core message. And man, like, it's just, it goes at this pace, this, like, I'm going to tell you a story, man. And this story has to do with the war. I had something to do with the war. The war on drugs is what gets me, man. Because the war on drugs, man, like, if you ever taken drugs, man, there's drugs you're supposed to take and drugs you're not supposed to take, man.
As long as you end it with what kind of name is Yossarian, it's exactly what we're reading.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? It feels like Vonnegut on weed.
Then again, this is the 60s. Maybe that's what we're dealing with here. I don't even know. I don't know how to place this. I don't know how to place this. It seems like a fresh perspective on a war novel.
Is it all that fresh? Well,
I haven't read
that's
anything
not
like
fair.
this.
It reads exactly like Vonnegut, but Vonnegut was not published in 61.
Yeah.
I think Vonnegut was published in 63.
This feels like a war novel that came from the Vietnam generation.
It feels like a war novel that just came.
Yeah, let's just go with that.
It feels like a war. There's no sense of get up here. This is laying in bed smoking a cigarette and rubbing your own chest.
Okay.
This feels like a war novel that just came.
Do you have a pen? I've got to set my agenda for the night. I'm so sorry. I don't know. I don't have anything else to say about this week.
The one last thing that I really have to say about this is that this novel should have started with chapter 14.
Okay.
That weird little moment in there where Yossarian's on the beach.
Yeah.
When we've got planes coming back from a mission. When we've got this weird energy between all of the characters. There is so much more immediate dynamism in that chapter than there is in the first 100 and, 38 pages. I think that last chapter is like 7 pages, 6 pages. The first 138 pages of this thing feel completely throwaway because there's no tone. The characters that are in chapter 14, that may as well be an introduction. We don't know anything more or less about them in 14 than we do previous to that. But there's the idea of in media res, which is start in the middle of things. And there's the idea that you start as close to the end as possible. Chapter 14 feels like the first chapter where there's an end in sight.
Okay.
Does that make any sense?
It really does, because that's that first shift you see in Yossarian, where it's not just talking about the guys I'm hanging out with, it's not just me being weird, we see a shift and a change in Yossarian.
And the change in a character can happen in chapter 1 and be reflected on in later chapters. And we still understand and digest the fact that that change is a change.
Okay.
And you shed 50,000 words.
And hopefully, moving forward, we're going to see more of that.
Right.
Hopefully something is coming from
because
this.
there are small moments in some of the other chapters where we have dynamism going on, where we have dynamics at play, where there's different things happening.
Yes.
But they're quickly discarded.
They are very quickly discarded. There is that quote that I have come back to a few times. I can't find it now, and unfortunately, I went out and bought my own copy so I could write notes in this, because the library copy was not cutting it for this review.
Yeah.
I don't have it listed. But there are moments where you sit there and you're like, hey, that seems significant. Maybe I should digest this, but it's never brought forward again.
But chapter 14 is the first time where beginning to end, the chapter itself feels like progress. Here's the irony. Do you remember what chapter 14 is titled?
No, I do not.
Kid Samson.
Okay.
The character we could not remember
Kid
is the title character of the first chapter that feels like progress.
So we're going to continue forward. We are going to get through this series. We will be back next week with 7 more chapters, is it? We're going to have, 15 through 21?
Yes.
Of Joseph Heller's Catch-22. If you like this kind of thing, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. I apologize if this is the first video that you have found us within.
Well, hopefully episode 2 of this series is the first video that you found us.
And please do leave us a comment down below. Maybe we are missing something dramatic. Let us know.
If something has flown over our heads, let us know. Because I am completely willing to be wrong about this.
I'd like to be wrong about this.
I would love to be wrong about this.
But so far, I'm not sure if we're wrong about this.
Right.
And if you want to help us create more great content like this here on Strip Cover Lit, we do upload a video every single day in 2019.
Corporal Snark. That was the other word. The other name.
If you want to help us create more great content, there's a link, as always, to our Patreon to be found in the description below.
If you'd like to help us start creating great content, we prefer to hang out on the mediocre side.